guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Tash, aka ZIMbarbieAN, and this is a space on the internet, a safe space on the internet, where we like to converse about different topics, okay? First of all, I'm going to start with you. Please may you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Tash. Hi, guys. I'm Ruvimbo, aka the Viminator, and I'm in brand development, and also I'm a former aircraft engineer.
Come on. And then yourself?
Part-time.
Part-time. Like sometimes you know sometimes you
That's so cool because like the guns were statement manje if something is like too hard to understand or too difficult, I'm a part-time day. So it's so cool. But yeah, I'm Tulk Munny. I'm a filmmaker, documentary filmmaker, and an actor and a musician. And a rapper, yeah, musician, songwriter.
And an icon. And yourself?
Yo, what's good? Tino. I'm an artist manager, and I have fun for a living.
Oh, I have fun for a living.
Wow.
Wild
When I
goals.
I want to be like you.
Right?
Yeah.
And you, who are you?
Dennis.
Nice to meet you, Dennis.
That's Dennis. All right, so the topic for today, I want to make sure I phrase it correctly, is reverse racist rhetoric. All right, so let me start here. Is not seeing color racist? Like, you know when people say, I don't see color, is that phrase a racist thing to say? I can start with you then.
No, to a small extent, you know, because racism, it carries like a lot. There's a lot that's bottled in this bottle called racism, you know. So when someone says they don't see color, you know, it depends also on their background. Naturally, you know, they grew up in a very diversified environment, cultural environment where, you know, it can accommodate different people. So when they don't see color, they just see you and me as, you know, anybody to them. So I understand when someone says they don't see color. But then as you go into the world and you start recognizing this social problems, this privilege problems, then you cannot say, I don't see color, because there's a distinction between how people are treated. When, as you grow, you can see that there's something here. Even if you don't see it.
I want to understand. So are certain people allowed to not see color and certain people are not allowed to not see color?
It's been made to, like, certain people, okay, but let me be direct. Black people, you're not allowed to see color, right? Yeah, you accept whatever, color, green, yellow, white, everybody's a human being. But when it comes to other races, when it's black people, there's a distinction. Like, that's a black person, that's a, you know, yellow person, whether they're Spanish or whatever. So certain races, you know, groups are taught not taught, but you grow up not seeing color. As a black person, you are not allowed to see color. You don't see color. Yeah.
I would vehemently disagree with that because the whole race thing is seeing color and seeing that your color is not the one, you know, so fire. But let me take it to you, Tino. Do you think that when someone says, I don't see color, that's a racist statement? Well, actually, let's be direct, like what you said. When white people say, I don't see color, is that a racist statement?
I don't think so. I
Yeah.
don't think it's a racist statement. If it's in the sense that they don't see color, they just see human beings, I don't think it's racist. But then if they're going deeper into it, like, you know, I don't see color, but then there are those distinctions between it. But if it's just, I don't see color, and I don't think it's racist at all.
Okay, Tak, my question is different
Okay.
for you.
So I wanted to answer the first time.
Oh, you wanted to answer?
No,
No,
it's
go ahead. No, it's a safe space, guys.
It was just going to be like adding on to what you had now just said when just before Tino spoke. Like when white people say that, half the time they're trying to pull out like get out of jail free card. So it's like no, like I've got black friends, you know, I don't see color, that sort of thing. But like for us, like, you know, she was saying, in a world where how can a black person not see color? Because like everything that's going on around us makes us know, whether you're in Zimbabwe, whether you're in the UK, whether you're in the most racist place, like there's that clear distinction. So yeah.
Dennis is not seeing color racist.
What is not seeing color?
Like
right?
when someone says, I don't see color.
No, you can
like,
say it, but like let's talk about what is it
you
actually.
can say what you want.
Yeah, but in actual practice, it's just a lie, bro. Like I don't see color is a lie. It's you notice what people are like in every setting that you're in, and now it's like I don't discriminate is maybe what you're trying to like say, right?
Yeah.
But that's also not true. There's no way that any human being doesn't have any form of bias towards any sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
And if you're going to be entitled to whatever it is in the form of preference, you're going to have some form of prejudice as well. So like, we're already lying in the beginning. So it makes it difficult.
You know, I agree with Dennis, right? To some extent, that you know, but what I'm trying to say is when you with different people, right? They grow up in a way that they don't see color as in they're at the same par with their maybe their black friends, their white friends, their Chinese friends, right? Then a national incident happens. A black person is treated some type of way, and then your white friends are quiet about it. Then when you call them out, maybe in public, they're like, no, I don't see color. You know, I've got my black friends, you know, but that's what I'm saying. Some people don't see color until they're forced to see color or until they're asked to, can you see what's happening?
Like to opine on
But-
something.
yeah,
So like what Tulk was saying as like a defense, like I don't see color as like my get out
Yeah,
of
like
jail
no,
free
yeah,
card.
it's like your job. No, don't involve me, Sha. Like,
I don't see color.
I don't see what's happening here because I've got my black friends, I've got my white friends, so I'm cool. But certain people do see color. Certain people actually actively try not to see it because they think it's a way of being progressive as a society.
No,
Us being just one thing, us just being under one banner
Yeah.
as human beings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you, Dennis?
I was gonna say people see color, right? Like I don't know, and the kind of growing up that it would take for someone to say that they don't see color would be, oh, I grew up in an environment where the color didn't matter. And the question is, what sort of environment is that? Like if you could be like you could have grown up on a farm. Your father was a farmer, and you grew up with the kids' Vimu compound or whatever. That's cool. But you were always treated differently. You might have tried to fit in as much as you wanted to, but you were always treated differently. You could have gone to a school where there was a significant like percentage of people there being of a different race from you.
Okay.
And it was cool. Like there was no, oh, so now you're higher or this one's higher. But trust and believe that no one in that time didn't see that, oh, those are the white guys and those are the black guys.
But then carrying on from what Bims was saying, isn't this the goal? Like for everyone to not see color, for people to just be human beings under the human umbrella. So why do people get pressed when someone says I don't see color?
There's actually like a real drive towards for like diversity training, away from saying we don't see color to we celebrate our differences.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's actually more practical. Like to say, you know what? Yeah, I do see color. I'm never not going to see color. The history and stories behind it will always be the history and stories behind it. But in that process or in that like setting, how am I celebrating that, or how am I not prejudicing the other people because of it?
I hear that. Okay, so my second question is, does white supremacy exist in Zim? And how does it affect, if it does, how does it affect like the regular Zimbabwean? I'll start with you, Tulk.
Oh.
Do you think white supremacy in Zim, like within a Zim context, is a thing?
All right. So it's messed up in the sense that these guys, like, because I love my country in the sense that reverse racism as even like a topic, and if you're an asshole enough, can I say that? I'm sorry. Yeah.
You can say what you want.
like you really don't give a fuck. You actually end up walking around Zimbabwe being a racist to every white person you meet, because you kind of have that in the back of your head, could you? So it's quite possible, right? But also at the same time, the rest of the community is also like sensitized in a totally different way. Most of the people who perpetuate like white supremacy and all of that shit in Zim are black people who work with or for these guys, and you rock up again to no, she Murunga hapo saka atisiona no pino no, he actually told me to wait for him. She mira murpanzi msapake pa gate and this is another black person who treats you like this, and you see this in like their establishments, restaurants, hangout spots, mabawa, chijiji. The actual manager, owner of the spot is trying by all means not to attract any energy. So my comrades are away today. So he'll be like, no, this is not me. This is not. And you're telling him, no, but your barman or your waitress was treating me a certain way and actually said, could you panapa?
And what's that?
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'll talk to them.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're the ones that have established that whole protocol. Tino, do you feel the same? Do you think that white supremacy is a thing within Zim?
It is a thing, and as Tulk put it, when you go out there, right, we're subjected to it by the people who work for those people.
Okay.
Those guys will be behind the scenes, like understand? Like all those people, you're not just gonna come out and say, you know what? It's his idea.
Right.
Now, you put him up to it, but after you put him up to it, you always have to wash your hands. That's where the I don't see color type thing comes into it.
Okay, so the thing is, I don't want us to dig too much into structural racism. Why? Because I don't think it's up for debate that structural racism exists. Like systematic racism exists. I don't think that's up for debate. If it is, then maybe please go in the comment section and we'll attack it in the next one. But what I want to address today in particular is rhetoric. So in terms of speech and the things that we say, and the question that I have is, has appropriate speech towards white people changed? Like what's appropriate to say? Or do we not care what's... Actually, let's start there. Do we care what's appropriate to say when it comes to white people?
Is this just Zim or...
No, like in general.
In general.
In the same way, until if you go to the States, and you're white, it's late for you.
Yeah.
And like say in South Africa or Katikafa or something, there's certain words and statements that can't be said to black people. Now it's even reaching out to like when people say, oh no, I'm sure my friend would like some chicken. If it's a white person talking about their black friend, and it's like, you're already in fire. So like I feel like speech when it comes to speaking about black people has gone in a way where like there's certain things that are appropriate to say and certain things that aren't appropriate to say. Yeah. Is it the same when it comes to white people? Like, are there things that are appropriate to say and not?
You know what? It actually looks like there's nothing that you cannot say in front of a white person, to be honest, that they could, or that can offend them, like nigger or what. Especially in Zim, you know, the places like in America where you can call them like a redneck, or in Europe you can call them a Nazi or whatever. Here in Africa, I think white people are living their best lives. I don't think we can say anything that can offend them, to be honest.
Really?
I don't think, like, okay, we can go to Sam Levy right now or Tin Roof. The white people here can actually, we can just even converse in Shona. You know, I don't see anything that I can say to a white Zimbabwean that's offensive. Seriously, no, school me. School me. I cannot pick it out in my mind.
I hear that.
Yeah. I
Dennis?
cannot. And you know, the thing is, also, white people have created white spaces for them.
Yeah.
So that we don't even have to be in their spaces.
Right.
Versus supremacy is not really a thing like how it is in like in America or SA, like in Zim. They've got their own spaces where, you know, us, we don't even go. Even if we go, I ain't trying to, so for us to even like, I mean, no, go ask the therapy if there's ever been like a white on black fight or interaction at white people's spaces. No, like really, I would want to look at the statistics. I don't think there has. So they've created their own white spaces. So, I mean, we cannot like intentionally be offensive to them.
Let's go level by level. Are we saying that white people can't be offended?
By what?
By the things you say,
like what? Like what?
Okay, so I'll say this, right? The whole idea is to do. Anzi, racism has to like affect this person's life, right?
Right.
Anzi nani.
Who said?
Anzi just
On
say, I would
Twitter.
have quoted-
Someone made a
but
thread
I'll
on
just say-
Twitter.
I'll just
That's
say
not a
Anzi,
real
like
thing.
Makua, right? Anzi, racism has to be something that you do to someone that actually affects their life or their livelihood and shit. So, like, what could you possibly do? That's the question that she's asking.
Okay,
what could
wait,
you
wait,
possibly
wait.
do
No, but
to,
the question
let's go
isn't
back.
about like
to a
racism.
to a Zimbabwean white person? What could you say to him that could get them feeling like, they're quite racist in Zimbabwe, which means, like,
Oh my
the
god.
most that we ever did was like be very harsh with the like land redistribution. And some people went through some shit, but apparently most of them knew, and all that was, this shit is gonna happen, so and they already made their plans, dipped. But the ones that are here and the ones that stayed, it makes sense to say they are living their best life because they've got these secret societies. My networks are a business are different. They've got their partnerships and everything.
true.
Their kids are in these schools and in these institutions, and they're the ones who would, even if you do find yourself going to a school with one of or a society of these guys, this one got foida. And this one they're really not, but they're the guys with they're grafting soon after Yon's finished writing exams. This one is in his.
Before I told MD. Wait, what were you gonna say, Dennis?
I actually don't remember what I was going to say specifically. But
I completely disagree.
No.
And maybe that's why I was getting dragged on Twitter for saying white people are under attack.
Oh, wow.
But
Right.
and I'll say it again. Why? Is because I'm speaking in terms of the things that we say. I don't think it's fair to say that white people can't be offended because how can I offend? Like, you know what I mean? Because I think we could say the same thing about why in Zim are you getting offended about the word nigger when it has nothing to do with the Zim context. It's an American thing about the things that they went through. They went through slavery. You didn't get called nigger a day in your life in terms of your ancestry. So why are you pressed by that? But like being offended doesn't have to do with a personal lived experience of something in particular. Like if you're speaking to a group of people and you say, oh, like Jewish people vanoba, or you say mandebela kashata, or you say mashona trina, or whatever, you're gonna be offended because it's something that's speaking to a group of people that you're associated with.
Sorry, okay.
So I was going to say, there's this weird thing that happens on Twitter, right? Especially on Twitter, where people like come up with new definitions for words that exist already. And racism is one of those things that people decided to do that with, right? So if you're like, what's racism? If you're talking about a white person that just called someone a nigger, it's like very obviously like this is prejudicial, right? But if you ask a black person who's just said something that's obviously prejudicial to a white person, what racism is, now all of a sudden it needs to affect you getting a job,
Literally.
and it needs
That
to
was a
affect this
different
and that.
definition.
But it's like,
Dennis
bro.
and Tash, I think there's something that we should be aware of, that our actions have consequences, right?
Yes.
So
All of our actions have,
sorry
not just
to be the one who's gonna drag us back to the back days. People were killed, people were shipped off,
Yeah.
people were families were separated, people were colonized. So if that's the thing that's going to unite one group of people, then let it be so, because there are consequences to your actions. You cannot expect to have killed millions or whatever, I don't know the statistics, please, whatever amount of black people that you
Billions.
killed. Then you think
All of them.
Then you think because now it's been 100 years ago, we're gonna pipe down about it. No, we are not gonna pipe down about it. We're gonna remind you, because we don't want to forget where we've come from and where your ancestors also came from. They were very brutal. They were very
American black
savage.
American black people convincing us that they are like the epicenter of blackness. Is
like
one of
they
the greatest
define
PR
blackness.
jobs of all
For
time.
real,
Like, bro, do you know, like,
They had to.
sorry, Bims.
They had to be forced in a position where they had to.
And even in terms of numbers.
I was about to say,
like,
right?
even
A group of people that had to fight for black excellence.
Okay, so Bims, let's talk about this.
I
Right?
don't blame them for that.
Here's the thing.
them.
African Americans are 13% of the U.S. population. We really believe that these guys
There's
are like
so many. They have so
when
much
when
impact.
Black Lives
Even
Matter.
in terms of how many, like the percentage in terms of other black people, probably like 2%, bro.
When Black Lives Matter was happening, they had in the English Premier League, they had people wearing Black Lives Matter T-shirts. It was on the sides of the game.
They had
It
people
was like,
protesting in every
bro,
country.
I promise you that like this is happening because a black guy got shot by an American white officer, right?
Choked to
And that's terrible. Like it's
Choked.
absolutely horrible. However, there are several black people getting killed in Africa at every turn of the way, right? There are several black people getting killed in the UK. And like no one's making noise about that because no. The American black people are the ones that matter.
but
And their story is the one that matters. That's why
Black
nigga's such a
American
big thing.
Let's be
It's really
careful
not.
to
Yeah.
cross lines here, right? I feel like what happened with colonialization. Let me just be quick with it. We fought our own fight and had the people who supported us. Black Americans have got their own fights that's happening in America. Let them fight their fight. I'm actually happy that they had a whole PR where they had Black Lives Matter. They had people scrambling and saying, no, we need to treat these people a bit better or slightly better than the rest. You know,
But
that's
not
them.
us, though.
Let them have their moments. Here in Africa, we have our own things to also fight. And I would want to actually say to the Black Americans, let's join forces. You do your shit in America, let's do our shit in Africa. And let's make this thing happen.
So why are you
Because-
pressed about people saying I don't see color? Why are you pressed
No,
about
I said I
white
agree with
supremacy,
it
etc.?
to a small extent.
In a community where, if we take it in a Zimbabwean context, a lot of the things that happen abroad don't affect you in the same way. Yet, why are you
No,
so
but they
mad?
have. I'm still like dealing with the effects of colonialization right now, Tash.
No, that I
It's a real
can agree
thing.
with.
Yeah, but not
I would
But then
agree
it's
though.
not
That's
the effects
kind
of
big,
slavery.
that's
But
being
I would
racist.
I would add on
by
to that.
actually looking down on a black person like they cannot rule over themselves. Let's take over this thing. We are actually
Yeah,
dealing
but
with
the
the
effects-
effects of colonialization.
I agree in
Whether
terms
we-
of with the
yeah.
effects of it.
And they're dealing
However,
with the effects
who
of
are the
slavery.
people in power?
So I would want to
okay,
add on
oh.
to that. I like this conversation.
Right now,
Yes.
it's black people.
Yes.
But
In a majority
but what
black
happened?
country.
What happened? What happened for no? But then now, us as black people right now, we're living hand to mouth. So it forces some people to be greedy, people to be corrupt,
Yeah.
and those are some of the effects that we have to deal with.
So people
As
are
human
corrupt
beings.
now because of colonialism, not because they just corrupt in jail.
No, because
These niggas are corrupt, my
Oh.
before they let us on our shores, we were eating mangoes and bananas, and we were very happy in jail.
Papa Sina.
Now, remember, Sina?
Plus, Papa's not my lace front.
Anyway, where people are living la vida loca.
Ukaenda
Take me
kwa
back.
ukaenda kwa
Take me back.
I was in Great Zimbabwe recently. Right?
Yeah.
I went there. Pari kwaitogara vana mambo denga so zvichiratidza kuti zveshuwaka even with us black people today
Hierarchies are there.
Yes.
right? There are those vanogara varipo vari kudya makeke vere then kobva kwaita vari kudya madhaka anhu vamuta anoizongwa nemacredit. So it's a thing.
So this
That's how it works.
It's like this guy is in my mind. Okay, so the thing is, right? Yes, we can attribute any form of slavery anywhere in the world back to African slave traders who were already corrupt before the colonialism, because individual human beings are corrupt. We were having this conversation a few days ago with some friends. Because like the guy in Africa who's sitting on that mountain, right, in Great Zimbabwe, is the guy who's dealing the slaves. He's the guy who owns the ports. He's got Sofala, he's got Tanzania, right? He's got people coming in, Arab traders and whatever, coming in to get gold, copper, whatever, grains and tusks and human beings. And these are strong, like I've always said this also, like strong, big, well-fed and well-trained human beings. They're not just going to be kidnapped onto a boat. 200 of those Negroes from their cabin is a
LeBron
brand.
James's uncle.
Unless
Imagine how tall
there's
that
somebody
man was.
somebody who's actually tuning. No, G, alright, so I'm that 200 my niggas. Muda my baby, got in my face. And then that nigga. So we already have corruption from before we set up these
part
things.
of our-
Then when for us to even be colonized is because some niggas were corrupt and we're like, no, you can talk to me, and then me, I'll deal with my people.
Literally.
And then now after that, we've
know
now
all the
got this
6
setup where we're worried because you can check out the neighborhoods, the way they're set up in Zim, in Harare and Itiga. And then you check with, all right, besides the fact that this was segregation that maybe started out because it was pre-colonial times or it was during colonial times.
Yeah.
Now, after colonialization, what has happened to change that? And you still find it, no, patronial, like people who make sure they're staying in their communities. If they're failing to keep a grip on their community, they'll move, create a new one. But there are places like Belvedere and Didi, where it would be nice to have, like, next time when you talk about, race and you find an Indian guy from Zim.
Yeah.
And then have them to rap about, like, how that's like a community, which I also feel maybe because I'm just a bitter Zimbabwean guy and an Indian in a community like that. But look, that's their community. And they're probably doing this to safeguard themselves because at a certain point, they had to, like, be put there.
Yeah.
Acadia, Braeside, Sunningdale, at Beniji, you know what I mean? Same thing. And you've got Kwedu, Ghetto, Mata, PGG. So we have these things already designed. So the guy who breaks out from either one of them is going to be corrupt or biased towards Vanwage. It's not necessarily racism, but shining it out to
Wait, so the context behind this, right, is I saw this TikTok, and it was someone saying, Kuti, if you have a white friend and they're going to come and hang out with us as black people, you need to consult all your black friends that your white friend is going to come and hang out with us because we might not be in the mood to deal with some white bullshit. And when I saw that TikTok, I thought to myself, wow, like people can say this because if it was reversed and someone said, if you want to bring your Turk and black friends, you need to make sure all us white people, because we might not be in the mood to deal with some black bullshit. Like, what do you mean? Why are we allowed to say certain things like that now, all of a sudden?
I'll say that, look, it's already happened. Just like I my Uncle Tom's. You go to these spaces. No, we go to these spaces, and some of these owns, we think they're our boys until we see him with his white homies.
Yeah.
And then,
like, oh.
Bro, he will even treat you like, hey, bro. It's worse than being treated like that by the waiter or the barman or something, where you'll be like, 10 or whatever. And then you're like, oh, I'm with you. And then the owner is actually giving you the attitude, good to know I'm supposed to be the only nigga here with these on, so you make a plan.
Yeah.
Saga White, are we just allowed to say that?
I think that was a bit extreme. Like,
but we say certain things all the time.
No,
That's
but
an extreme, yes.
I'm trying to understand because, there's also a topic of culture appropriation. Like, my planet, this thing, my boy, I don't like, the black people are the farm people. I also saw a TikTok. I think
is that why they have
Turkey.
their own communities that they don't want to?
And there was this girl, and she's like, I love Americans. And then she went straight to black Americans because she thinks Americans are black Americans. And she's like, oh, my boyfriends have been black people. So it's actually a thing, like, you've got certain white people who do culture appropriation, right? So if you're going to invite your white friend and you're going to invite me to your humble abode, if I was someone who was very sensitive about race, I would want to know because I don't want to be checking your friend. Like, that's not correct. You want to be
But
polite.
why the assumption? Wait, Tino, before I actually go to that, Tino, do you feel the same way? Are we justified in the way that we speak about white people now?
In this country, the thing is, one of my community and my society, right? We really do not mix. So there are so many things that we can say. I really do not know about out loud, but there are so many things we can say. It's just not gonna effect to them. The same thing as they can say so many things, it's not effect. So it does not affect.
But
you consider that
But
racism?
there's a term.
Yeah,
to
right?
add on to what Tino said, the kitchen table talk. With our one shady friend, we love her, but she's just like, because I'm trying to act funny or give an attitude or whatnot. So I think it's the kind of same vibe.
Cap. Why? Because you know that and you say that about that specific shady friend because you've experienced it. The problem now is that as black people, we associate whiteness with automatic racism. Being white makes you racist, which is the thing that I'm debating because you've never even met that other white person I'm going to bring into the circle. You just said, I don't want to deal with white bullshit, whatever that means, because now automatically being white must mean you're racist.
And to be honest, if you're in Zim, I'm going to ask this. In all honesty, how many people have actually experienced racism? Because everyone now they haven't even experienced. So many of them just see what I'm put on the motor.
Yeah.
That's the majority of the Zimbabwe, to be honest.
Yeah.
You understand? So racism.
I mean,
because from 1980, anyone born free, you know, it's a conversation.
No. But at least it is though. Exactly.
But there is racism because you know these people blatantly don't want to. That's actually, you know what? That's a point. It actually shows me there is racism. Because even Kusarata mix and mingle with my boy, it's actually taking us back as a nation. No, I'm going to start my shooting. You can even see with what happens where we mix and mingle most as a nation with white people is at sports, rugby, cricket.
I'll say
where are these white people that you guys are talking about? No, so
go to Team Roof on a Wednesday.
Exactly. Bro. Okay, fine. Let's say Team Roof has 10,000 people, right? In that moment, there are 15 million people in Zimbabwe. Even if they wanted to interact with Zimbabweans on a massive scale, there's not enough of them. Do you get what I mean? Like, there's genuinely just not a lot of white people in this country. Even if they wanted to interact with you, it's limited.
Yeah, but then even when you then go to their spaces and you can tell there's a bit of car. But then they actively guys, in life, when people are intentional about something, then there's a problem or there's a good thing out of it. White people in Africa are very intentional about certain things that they do. They make their own gigs. When they're fishing, tournament, you won't even hear about them. They'll have their golf tournaments. I'm not saying which as a community, you're not supposed to have your own things and it. But then it's getting to, it looks like there's a demarcation. We want to have our own thing. So if we're going to have this umbrella, we're all humans, then it's not going to, we're never going to connect.
So like I could go back to the thing that I mentioned earlier. If it affects the economy and the livelihoods of the people involved, right? 10 students in a class, one of these schools, because now we've got access to some of these people. You go to the same schools with them and whatever. But for the same reasons that your father is able to get you to go to that school, he's not necessarily part of this mafia that is the development committee of the school. So you find a family, Browning, who have been at this school for generations, and your dad is paying full school fees. These guys have got some ledger. That in itself is already letting you know that you're not a part of the circle. We are going to exploit you and use you for you like this image. But we actually have like a unit and like this. So it's the same thing with the employment structures. You want to pass. And maybe because your boy really was cool with you and whatever, he'll be like to his belly, bro, my homie now graduated, or he's now an accountant. Can we please employ him?
Yes.
But his buddy is like, no, you're running the company, you do what you do, because he knows how to run the company, which is also something that's different. Racism is also not having our kids and our peers and our families like conscientizing each other about the relationships we have with our people. This person, Arambe, Aite Uncle Tom, right? To refuse other black people access to his Murungu is a selfishness. It's some mentality which is unnecessary as far as I'm concerned. But without that, right, you've got people who could be able to like communicate better and That's fine. You don't have to be the racist because sometimes Murungogo is not even racist at all.
Yeah.
And he's worried.
Yeah.
You treat other black people like that. It's so uncomfortable. Because I look at it from another point of view where, like, white people go through the most. If you're a black Zimbabwean, Rhodesian, and you are going through the most already. You chose to stay. Right now, you are here in this country. And got a bunch of black people just looking at you like, oh,
Because I was actually going to bring that up as like maybe like especially because
I'm not a sympathizer, by the way.
Majority.
I think
maybe
another point of view.
I don't know. I think I am a little bit like China on Tuesdays. Like
before you go on, it's not even about white people only. Even Chinese people in
it's the exact same
they'll
thing.
They'll be driving a Land Cruiser, and you who's been here, born 1980, you don't even know.
But then the question that I have is that, so we've spoken about them having different economies, and not economies, communities. And I know that we're not going in the path that I was trying to steer away from because this is about rhetoric and speech. But then before we go back, do you think that maybe they're in those little communities not necessarily to keep people out, but like because they're a minority in a majority black country, so they're like at a disadvantage.
So sympathizers, isn't it?
On Tuesdays.
Your chests.
But you know,
like,
do you know what? When I look at their communities as well, right? Especially in Zim, I think their communities are focused more on building because they are the community.
Yeah.
So they build more than our community. Because in our community, no matter how big we are, the best thing that we are good at is shooting each other down, not giving each other access. The same thing you want to you cannot get access to my murungu. You understand? Instead of connecting your peers to your murungu so that your murungu can give them access to the mafia gold. But
I couldn't have said it any better.
I could have said.
People are building their community. They're connecting each other before one's a marry, kwana tash.
And longevity,
but when somebody wanna
sustainability,
abdo, you understand? I was going to kwana tash. But going to Muhammad instead of going to kwana dinners.
I've got a question.
Okay.
Are we as a race, are we patient with ourselves? Because I feel like what Tino is saying is that it's a conversation that's been happening in the black community. For us to work together, to uplift each other. There are actually people that I know that I can name word for word who came together and they give each other my deal, they give each other my plans, they mentor each other. Black people, not anything, and right now they are racking in money.
Yeah.
And in this Zimbabwe where people think no, they are actually not like no. Shut out the noise. This is what we're going to do. We are boys, we are girls. This is how we're going to do it. How we're going to build each other
I think that's
up.
mostly a Zimbabwe diaspora conversation. No. So hear me out. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen here. It does happen here a lot. But I'm saying it's not a practical conversation for Zim. It's a practical conversation when you're in the diaspora. Because the thing is, when you say I should work with black people, bro, this whole neighborhood is black people. Which specific person are you talking about? But whenever we have these conversations, we're talking about the Indian community in Zimbabwe, which is a minority community, or the Jewish community in different places, which is almost always a minority, population as well. So I don't know if it really if it works in this context.
I disagree. I think I have a very different view to that. From my perspective, the issue is that the whole thing about systemic racism is that you're taught or you're made to believe that there's only finite resources. So only a few amount of people are going to be able to get this thing. And that means I'm going to have to drag someone down for me to be a person that gets something. So I think that's where it comes from, where people aren't able to work with each other, and also monoroya. But anyways, let's go back to what I wanted to speak about. And that's the thing. Are we saying that because of all these systemic things, etc., that justifies the way we speak about people and different races? Is that what we're saying?
I think you can give us a pass. Come on. And you see that I'm born on the
Oh, kushkarini. Like, past your 10 years, past your 50 years, 200 years, lifetime pass.
Yeah, it's our moment.
Hey, bruh. And I think that's a very dangerous hill. Like, because aren't you worried that there's going to become a tug of war?
No.
You know why? But let me first explain where I'm coming from. We all agree that systemic racism is a thing. I feel like I'm going to have to say that like 5 times in this video because, you know, I already have the tag of being a sympathizer, maybe on Tuesdays. But we all agree that systemic racism is a thing, right? We're speaking about rhetoric. My issue is that if we continue in the way that we are now, for example, we speak about white people in whatever way that we like, then in my perspective, it might have the effect of diminishing the actual racism, like the things we should be worried about, like systemic racism, because then we get into an argument about rhetoric. Could see, oh, I can call you a nigger because you call me cracker, and then this, that, and then nobody's actually talking about the fact that, hey, all these systems are built for white people, because now we're in a rhetoric fight.
Yeah. No, I do. I do agree. Like, it's the rhetoric. Yes, people need to. It's just a human thing. People just need to watch what they say in front of people. So you have to do that, whether you like it or not. I cannot just say whatever I want in front of people, right? Or I'm deemed offensive, right? So whatever people say now about white people, it's not a pass because there's been 100 or whatever, several years of racism or slavery or whatever. It's not a pass. So yes, that's a conversation that we have to have as a community to hold ourselves accountable.
Deep Zeta 180.
No, I'm not doing 180. And I said, but we are allowed. No, seriously, but we are allowed to say, like I said, there's culture appropriation as well. I think we're allowed to say whatever we want to say in front of white people because at the end of the day, I'm still thinking, what can I say that's offensive to a white person? What can I say? Like what?
Yeah, that's an option.
That's one thing you
can
say.
But you don't belong in Zimbabwe. Go back to England.
Yes.
Oh my God.
That's another. Give us more.
No one's gonna say that.
But people do say
you guys don't
like
season
that.
your food.
Yes. That's also a generalization. Like you don't know.
Okay, so I mean let's and I hate that this is the definition that we've decided to start working with. This one about like only if it affects you in this way or that way. But let's talk about it from that perspective. When you go and you say, like, whether it's a push towards affirmative action, for example, that definitely affects white people's actual livelihoods, right?
Yeah.
So that is an actual conversation. When you go and you say these jobs, for instance, in Zim cricket, I don't remember what year it was, at some point, maybe 2006 or so, at some point they were like, our national cricket team needs to have 9 black people because that's the representation that they need. That's starting to affect actual white people. So how does that fit into the conversation around black people not being able to be racist?
Because I'm very passionate about cricket. I think I remember that time when there was like a whole like a government thing. It was like 70% local or whatever. Way they had to be like 70% like black representation on radio, on TV, and sports, everything. Yeah. But then I think that brought to the platform great players like Anata Tenda Taibu, and it made certain people from certain schools to be hopeful to actually then join the national team, Like a boy from Churchill could then have an opportunity versus it's only Falcon and Georges and St. John's who just participate, right? I think sometimes, even if you look back in history, we have to be intentional about how we better ourselves. Even if it doesn't make sense to you, look at even like Germany, for example, if you want to develop, there's certain things, certain structures that you have to put in place. And sometimes you have to eat the frog. That's just how life works. You have to eat the frog. And I feel like us as a nation, we had a drive for black empowerment. And when I look back at our forefathers, they had to do that drive because this was their only place. They could not go to Europe and live their best lives. but they could see another race that came in, going to Kariba, nema speedboats, imimi murukusakura munda. Make it make sense. And I say this window Kariba, you know it all speedboating. You know? So I understand where the fight came from, the fight within. It's good to know if you can do that. I also want to be able to do that. And in fact, especially when it's where I was born and bred, I cannot travel and talk about shipping of Europe, Christopher Columbus. So we had to fight here.
I mean, I hear that, but then I think that, okay, whilst we're, never mind the racial conversation because Tato Diba anyways. I have a question. Will there ever be a day when we say, all right, white people, my pizza, like you've suffered enough, not you've suffered enough, but like where we can say, Kuti, you've served your time and you no longer need to be punished for racism
Reparations.
Yeah, like my reparations sake. Is there a day? Like, is there ever going to be a day like that?
There might be a day, but it's not soon.
Not soon.
They definitely haven't paid for their sins yet. But
what does that look
in
like?
charge, racist.
So, I mean, regardless of which direction you want to approach the conversation from, right? Like, whenever there's an inequality that exists along racial lines, there's something that's going on, right? Inequality is going to exist. Whether it's some black people being richer than other black people or white people being richer than black people, the inequality will exist. But when it's along racial lines, it creates an unstable environment, right? Because I feel like this is why I'm not there. But actually, no, that's all.
So is it for as long as there's any inequality along racial lines, there's going to be an issue? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. And are we saying that inequality right now in a Zim context is along racial lines? Is that what we're saying?
No.
So it's along a couple of different
lines.
lines.
Saying that Zim
there is inequality along racial lines.
Along gender lines.
Yeah, there's inequality along racial lines. But
right?
it's actually not as that doesn't affect the rest, like the larger population. It's also inequality not affect that squeezy. That's all I want to say. I don't want to keep speaking.
Yeah, and I think I can say the same. Okay, so whilst we're rounding up, and I think it's very, what's it called? Serendipitous? No, ironic that we're having this conversation, and I had as a question on here, why do minorities like to talk about race so much?
Oof, that's a good one.
Is it a good one?
No, because you know,
it sounds like she's setting us up right now. That's actually what this feels like. It's like, bro, like Tash, no, actually, seriously.
It doesn't pass without us discussing racism.
Exactly. As Bibbs gets herself into trouble. Okay, go on. Enjoy.
Okay, fine. I won't set you up. I will say this as my last question. Is there rehabilitation for racism? So, for example, if you have a friend and you're like, you know what, my friend, you were already racist. And then you're like, oh, okay, I guess I'm racist. Let me not be racist anymore. And then you go wait a rehabilitation kako or read my black books or whatever that looks like, start listening to Kendrick, and then it's like, okay, you're back in the community now. Or is it that once a racist, always a racist?
I don't see color.
Really?
If it's in you, right?
Totally rehabilitated racists are the ones that...
You know, sometimes passion is a dangerous feeling, eh? And I feel like people who are racist are very passionate about their beliefs. Yeah.
Wait, so why are you also the same people on Twitter talking about let's re-educate people? Re-educate them to what if there's no going back? I disagree. From my perspective, I believe that you can be racist and then be like, you know what? I'm not going to be racist no more. Maybe I'm going to learn more about the people that I think are just, thieves. Maybe they're not thieves. Maybe I'm going to learn more about the people that I think are XYZ because maybe they're not that. And then you can go back and be reinvited into society and be a better person. I don't think it happens often. Why? Because people don't give you the opportunity. People treat you as if once a racist, always a racist. And now I think we've even gone further to say that once you're white, you're already automatically a racist, which means you're also automatically unrehabilitatable.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Yeah, but you've brought a good point. Like, yes, we have to have more conversations like this, and we need to educate each other. And there's a lot of misinformation that's out there that will make us, because of conditioning. If I see a white person and they don't say good morning to me, I'm like, this bitch is racist. What's that?
Like, automatically, that's the reason. And it's like, maybe she just doesn't like you.
Or maybe she just wants to be quiet. She had she had, a bad morning, and she just wants to just be quiet. And all of a sudden, she's like, this is a racist person.
Exactly.
But it's also us, continuing the conversation, educating ourselves, getting to know each other better as racists. Because there are things that...
You know what I thought you said? Getting to know as racist.
No, racist.
Let's know each other better as racist.
I'm not a racist.
Okay, no. Okay, continue.
Shout out to
But then
my
even
people
that, you're worried to be called a racist because that might mean something, or that might be a badge that's put
then,
on.
like what you're saying, like automatically, I feel as a black person, I'm not racist.
Well, so anyways, okay, no, we were gonna go into. But I think that as we close up, right, I would want to hear from each of you, and I'll start with you, Tulk. And the question that I have is there any issue with the rhetoric that we're using as minorities, and should there be any change towards that?
Well, firstly, I'll just okay. There's no problem. Turbo. It's just we're actually like a minority, first of all. So we've got like get out of jail free card, right? This total fund no, we don't see color, which is why there's no problem when like blacks, not even in America, and did it, but in Zimbabwe we are the majority. But it's fine for us to say, I don't see color. And you will actually be one of those blacks in Zimbabwe like, he's a nice guy, because when we stand by my so you just want to make them feel comfortable. I don't see color.
You're a good
But
black.
the real deal is like the rhetoric is fucked up right now. Like we really need to get people conscientized. Like our communities are so like myopic. We're all in these like boxes, and you don't have to be told by your bali kunzoni. You know what I mean? High school. It's such a fucked up guan for him to have gone through that shit and now be living in his own hood. And now be constantly tussling and fighting with them to get into the neighborhood. Watching like, to be like, okay, so I also want to help monitor our hood. Why is it that you guys are always just stopping random black kids, my sons and shit? Because it's just, that still happens.
Yeah.
Because there's only my cops do that. And you move into one of the gated communities.
Go Tina every
day, boys in the neighborhood watch you act like they don't know this one. So the rhetoric is the conscientization where if we speak a certain way, it's like right now it's fine because it's fucked up. But we need to work on how like we get people to think a certain way so that by the time they speak, it's
it doesn't matter.
It's not a guan, yeah. Because it's just like the way on the scheming right now. You need the way I scheme about triumphs in the Miz. You don't even know. I'll go to certain places just to actually like start and try some shit, and I know they don't. But there's a club owner who's in there who wants to start some shit and be like, no, I'm like, Iribo. By the time his manager comes, I'm using all the English I've learned in my life. He's looking at me like, because it's just shit that's going on. So imagine the person who needs to be dealt with in this particular institution is my fellow brother, my fellow black man. So it's messed up. But like that's how I feel. Like the rhetoric is gonna change from like the mindset change that comes with dealing with our community. Because my vet, they've got their community. But if they see the community they're keeping themselves, guarded from, and like, they will also feel some type of way. Because now at Chango, good morning, Basi. At Chango, there's like some balance that needs to be there.
Some middle
where
ground.
Everybody feels like we're comfortable sharing the space. And
Yeah.
you chose to stay after and whatever. So now it means you're a proper Zimon, right? Let's try and make it balanced. You know what I mean?
Let's make this work. Let's make this work. Oh, shit. Okay, Tino, your closing remarks. Do you think there's an issue with the rhetoric that we use and whether or not it needs to be changed?
I'm not even going to say much. Because
So far.
everyone is just cooking in their own pots right now. To be honest.
Dennis?
So, I do believe that people are ultimately going to do anyway, so it's fine. However, we also need to respect that there may be consequences to those actions. A lot of the issues that we have with, white people, and Tulk was calling us minorities just now. Bro, we're not minorities in Zimbabwe. We're minorities.
I said we're majority in Zim, we're minority
fair. But like the point I was going to make is there's always going to be a response to that behavior, right? And part of what you think is like being an activist in your workplace, like, white people can't tell me nothing, is part of why you're not getting promoted. So like, you're going to have to realize that like your actions will have a reaction, and at a certain point you're going to get pushback. People are going to say, that's enough.
Yeah.
And I don't know how far we are from that.
And yourself, Benz? Is there an issue with the rhetoric?
Yes, there's an issue with the rhetoric because I don't want us to make this level of freedom or comfortability make us be the people who then become our oppressors. I wouldn't want us, because now in Zim, we are the majority, then we can just, say what we want. Or maybe in America right now there are laws against racism, you can just say, whatever. I wouldn't want that as a black people. What I would want us to focus on is to better ourselves as a black people, because there is, whether people don't, there is an invincible Cold War against, whether black people should prosper or not. I 100% believe in that. And I would want us more to focus on being a better race, showing that we can be counted in whatever it is to make this earth work for all of us. We can also get piece of the pie and prove ourselves, as we have done also in some ways. As black people, we've proved ourselves. And I think I'd rather have, as a closing remark for me, or us focusing on our black excellence and bettering our communities.
I mean, I hear it. First of all, I hear what everyone is saying. From my perspective, I think that there is an issue in mimicking your oppressor's behavior. I think that you gain nothing from the way that you speak about certain people. So, for example, in calling us niggers or whatever, it was to bring us down. And in the way that we speak about white people, or have normalized speaking about white people now, it's not going to bring us up. If anything, it's just going to make people around. So, for example, if I'm around someone who's using rhetoric that I think is disgusting, I will feel untoward towards that person, because I'm like, how can you speak about people in general that way? So for me, my perspective is the way we speak about people in general for everyone should be a uniform standard. Don't be a dickhead. Like, it's that simple. And with that, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for watching this episode, and also thank you guys for being on it, and we'll see you next week.
Big on me, the Holy Ghost, Son of the Most, Father they don't